There are a lot of things that change with time, but for us, our dedication to helping farmers succeed has never wavered. We started Beck's Hybrids with 80 acres of farmland here in Atlanta, and we're proud to now serve farmers in over 15 states, across the Midwest and the Mid-South.
The Beck family and Beck's Hybrids, a major player in the ag industry with deep Indiana roots. The largest family-owned seed company in the United States. What's behind Beck's success? We'll get the lowdown from CEO Sonny Beck on this edition of the Business and Beyond podcast.
And we are the first family-owned company to sell more than 2 million bags of seed corn in a single year. As a grandson, a son, and now a father, I'm proud to help raise the next generation of Beck's leaders and look forward to remaining independent and family-owned for generations to come.
That's fifth generation Beck. Corey Beck, already carrying the torch for a legendary Indiana ag family. The Beck philosophy, quality, service, and pushing the needle forward in agronomic research. And I am pleased to be joined on the podcast this week by Sonny Beck, the CEO at Beck's, one of the largest retail, family-owned retail seed operations in the entire country. Sonny, how are you?
Just fine. How you doing this morning, Gary?
Good. I thought I would open up with the most important question of this podcast. That's how about those Purdue Boilermakers?
Yeah, they made it a game last night. My guys, took off like I'd go blow them out. But
yeah,
any of these Big Ten teams, I mean, they can come back. The Big Ten is just so good anymore. So
yeah. And as we're taping this podcast, it is the morning after the Purdue Minnesota game at Mackey Arena in West Lafayette. Purdue continues to hold on to that number 2 national ranking. And Craig, you're a longtime Board of Trustees member there at Purdue. So anytime there's a run like this, it puts the pep in the step of folks at the school, I would imagine.
That's right. Yes, a lot of excitement going on, and with all the innovation and all the stuff that's going on in the research department and our Discovery Park, just filling up with aeronautical kind of things. So it's a very high time for Purdue. They're on a roll.
Yeah, we'll talk about that because innovation, your connection to Purdue, personally and with the company, obviously, and innovation, a theme that runs through all of that. As first of all, since you mentioned it, I'll bring it up too. When you talk about the innovation, the entrepreneurship, the things going on at Purdue and Purdue's connection to economic development in the state and those types of things. There's been momentum, I think, in that regard for a number of years, but it seems as though it's really kind of reaching a bit of a peak now.
Yeah, it really has. And some people wondered what would be after Mitch. Mitch got some really great things started. And then President Mung now had been at the university for 5 years. And he even then took a sabbatical and went to Washington, D.C. And I said, you're probably not coming back, are you, Mom? And he said, I guarantee you, Sonny, I'm coming back. I just want to see how the rest of the world works, and I'll be back.
Yeah.
So, he's continuing to build on the great legacy that Mitch Daniels had there.
Yeah. Certainly Purdue's status as a world-class agricultural institution. Sonny, as you look, as we begin here, at the overall, the state of agriculture in Indiana, how would you assess the state of agriculture as we begin 2024?
Well, I think it's on a roll also. I mean, doing business in Indiana is really about as easy as you can get. And with our Midwestern values and great Indiana government and legislature that really makes it as easy as it can anywhere to do business. And now with the I-65 corridor, from Indianapolis to Purdue, and that's a huge thing over the next 30, 40, 50 years. It gives a great place for all kinds of businesses to operate, in addition to our great ag industry. We don't want to forget our great ag industry here in Indiana either, because it's over $30 billion money coming in. And so I think Indiana's the easiest place to do business, and I think we're on for a great run there. Purdue and other universities here in the state also.
As you look at that, you mentioned the ag industry, if you will, and it's certainly traditional farming, a big part of that, but it's much bigger than that. Obviously, talk about, because I think people don't really appreciate the size and scope of the ag industry, the role that innovation plays in that going forward as well.
Yeah, so still there's great Indiana companies. Corteva is located here now, and Bayer has a presence, and basically in our company, and other than 140. At one time, I went to a seed meeting in my early days, and it's 140 people there, and about 90 of them were in basically the corn industry, and from Indiana. I mean, we had a lot of people there. My father and grandfather started our part of the company in 1937 when Purdue Botany Department says, we have this new thing called hybrid seed corn, and any farmer can come and get their 3 acres worth. And so my dad and my grandpa both got their 3 acres worth, as did almost one person from every county at that time. And so it was a great way to build the business. Other states did not dispose that quite as widely. And so you didn't see as many family-owned companies in Iowa, for instance, and some of the other states. But Indiana was about getting it out and letting, a lot of just plain farmers go after with a seed company if they wanted to. So.
Yeah, and I want to talk about the formation of the company, because it's a great, really, to me, one of the great entrepreneurial success stories, certainly in our state. But some numbers came out this week or just here in the last number of days, numbers on the size and scope of the Indiana ag industry. And one of the things that caught my eye, it indicated there were about 95,000 farmers in the state. What caught my eye was the average age of a farmer is 56. Is that a concern to you, the age, of farmers and that young pipeline of talent really needing to be filled up?
I hadn't seen that statistic, but it's 1 year younger than it was 30 years ago.
Oh, is that right?
It's always been about 57 through all these years. And but no, farmers don't necessarily quit at 65 either, as you well know.
Right.
But they'll continue on, and maybe their son or another person would continue on with the business, because they can farm till you're 75 or 85. I mean, with today's equipment, we're not throwing hay bales around anymore,
right,
and so forth. I kind of hate that, because that was always great for building your muscles and everything. But
right.
No, I think it's a concern, but it isn't a concern, because it's just the way our ag industry operates. Now, you do have to be on top of your game and in the seed industry if you're going to appeal to those younger people that are coming on, and certainly they're more tech savvy and that sort of thing. So we always want to be on top of our game, and other seed companies do with what we call farm server. That's our digital way to keep track of your fields and for every farmer and so forth that we have, and other companies have kind of the same thing. But
yeah. As you look at careers in agriculture, and I guess I maybe touched on that earlier, but is part of the issue or the talent issue that cuts across all industries, but for agriculture, just kind of getting the word out on the careers there are in agriculture. You mentioned technology and research and communicate. There's so many areas of agriculture that young people can get into now.
Oh, there really is, and we have I would say a lot of employees now working for the company that maybe you'd call were city or suburb, but they knew they wanted to get into something, botany or agriculture or something, and they don't necessarily have a farm background, but I mean, you're not going to have a computer background to work in business today. So that's one of the important things, and then kind of a love, and we've always hired for attitude and work ethic. I didn't say what your background was. I mean, those are two things that people ask me 40 years ago. What do you hire for? Attitude and work ethic. If you have a great attitude, and you come to work and you show up every day and you have a great work ethic, we probably got a job here for you. And so it's about that. And then if you're working inside, and I call it a heads down job, maybe you're in finance or you're on the computer or you're some in research at your inside job, okay, heads down, and you're not happy. What do you like doing on weekends? Oh, we go camping, we go try to ride horses at my friend's house. And I just love, like, I'm gonna have to fire you because you're not any good at heads down job. But how about we move you over here to a sales job or an outside job in the farming part or whatever. And you're just in the wrong job. You're not a bad person.
Yeah.
And so sometimes it takes that to help people realize what their passion is. And that is the most important thing in maintaining your job, being happy in your job, is have a passion for what you do every day when you go to work. And you find a company that you can find that passion in, well, you'll never work a day in your life. I mean, like a lot of farmers, and my dad said, I never worked a day in my life because I enjoy every day I go to work. And I guess that's the way I am, and a lot of people are in agriculture.
Well, you've taken that passion to grow Beck's into the largest family-owned retail seed company in the country. I think the third or fourth largest seed brand in the nation as well. Sonny, I want to get to the roots of the company, but give us a thumbnail description of Beck's now in terms of your size, your footprint, based in Atlanta, Indiana. Kind of a thumbnail description of Beck's.
I guess, we would be third largest seed company in terms of corn and soybeans in the U.S. And it amazes me that how it happened, but it's just, I guess I never realized the power of Rule 72. Have you ever heard of that banker's rule?
Yes.
72. Put money in the bank at 6% interest, divided into 72, it tells you it will double in 12 years. Well, fortunately, inflation, we've had 12 to 13% growth every year except 2 since 1964.
Wow.
It's just steady. And I think Simon Sinek wrote a book about it here the last couple of years of the infinite game. You don't want to play to reach a certain thing. We're going to beat the high school, the big school in the county, and our little school is going to beat them in football. And that's your only goal. And I know one person that was their only goal, But I mean, if you have a goal, then you quit. Unfortunately, we can't quit because we're trying to always be better. And the whole team is like, we're just going to be better ourselves. So I think we can control. And that will make the company better. If we all are trying to be and accomplishing being better. And so I think that's what's made the difference is we have dedicated employees, and that comes from management and family, recognizing what they do and that's as important as anything. When I'm hiring, I like basketball, okay? So if I'm hiring a team, I don't want 5 7 foot centers. I can probably beat you with another team,
Yeah.
And but I want a big center, and then I want a defensive guy that he knows he stopped the other team, and his players know he stopped the other team, but the crowd doesn't really understand that. But if your shooter goes back down the floor pointing to, hey, nice block, love it, or hey, you really shut that guy down, instead of bragging about my shot. I mean, that's what we try to do here is the whole team wins. And when the whole team wins, then everybody feels like they did their part and they accomplished something. And so I want to hire different talents to go do a job, not all shooting guards. And so, that's when we continue to say with our work, attitude and work ethic, that's what we mean. It's like attitude and work ethic in your job. And you understand you do that, you're going to like what you do. And also the rest of your team is going to say, great job.
Yeah.
And so we've been you asked about size. I believe we have around, I know we have 970 employees. Now it changes every couple of weeks here, but 970 employees. And that tends to grow with the growth and so forth as it comes along. So then some of those are in around a couple dozen sites that we have around, and on the board behind me here, I don't think you can see it, but would be the dots where we have a facility in 19 different states now, and that encompasses about 85% of the corn acres in the whole 50 states.
Wow.
So basically, Colorado, we only need to sell in three counties in Colorado until we ask to get our snow skis. And so then we don't sell much in that territory. So that's we're just about expanded into most of the good, the good soils. There's 2 or 3 states yet can go, but we won't expand until we can do the same job with that next 2 or 3 counties as we're doing with our present system. A story I love to tell was when way back, and it was one of the Indiana meetings. The meeting was a lot of the ag community, a lot of the seed growers, and one of my friends said was in seed business. Said, "Boy, we're selling in 7 states now," and I kind of shrunk down to my seat. I'm selling a 60-mile circle. I've only been back on the farm, but we were a 30-mile circle. Now we're maybe a 60-mile circle in the middle of Indiana. Like, okay, well, great. I'm glad you're really going. Later on in the conversation, he divulged how many bags of seed he was selling. I thought to myself, we sell more than that in just a 60-mile circle, and not 7. And that also taught me I wanted to start a 30-mile circle like my dad had and kind of expand to 60. And when you can do that job for the next 30 miles, like you could for your first ones, go after it. But if you expand out too far, you do not give them the service. You don't have an agronomist that gets there to help walk the fields. And you don't maybe even have the right products for them, or you don't have, in today's world, a good farm server, a good computer system for them. And so a little bit later, they were one of the companies that sold out.
Wow.
And the reason he said, I just couldn't give the service out there that I should have been giving. We have a map on our boardroom, it shows how far we were in 1964, 1966, 1970, 1975. And then it took us about 5 to 8 years to get across the Mississippi River. The last part of Illinois was really difficult because the circle was getting so big. That's how we expand. We don't get there until we, and it honestly is just 12%, 13% a year, but it just counts up, on it.
Yeah. So, and I think that's noteworthy is that you're very strategic, very intentional about how you grow. And again, over time, keeping the head down and driving forward, and you grow, and that is part, I think, of the amazing story of your growth, that double-digit growth you talk about.
We used to say it attitude and work ethic, and about 19 years ago now we said, well, what are we really? And so we developed on one page 19 things that we aspire to be, we want to be, and then we wrote them out. It took four typewritten pages. We signed our joint team, which is about 12.5 people. So we said, what are we? What do we aspire to be? So we had 19 things, and we said, no, nobody can remember those. Nobody's going to pay attention to them. Get it down to 5. I can throw on one hand. Well, we got it down to 6. couldn't get right tight to 5. And also less than 1 page of describing it, but we call it attitudes and actions, and it's TIIACP. And that's teamwork, integrity. You must have integrity and be honest with your teammates and with your company, and we will be with you, because that ruins any relationship. So innovate is the next one, TII. And you got to be thinking, when you're in farming or whatever, that they never goes exactly right. The fertilizer guy doesn't get there with the fertilizer. The seed man doesn't get there with the seed. The weather changes. This field got wet. That one didn't. So you got to innovate, I call it, and innovate, adapt, and overcome. And so as you go on down through that list, the last 2 are commitment and passion. And when you find a job at passion that the person will do on weekends when they go home, outside, inside, whatever, then you've got an employee that will really begin to like what they do at work too. Wow. And so you try to find that for them. Commitment, the one right before that. people think I mean commitment to the company and only the company and all that. And I said, no. Now, if you're going to have a happy life and you're complaining to me about, oh, I'm working 50 hours a week sometimes, I'm working 60 hours a week sometimes, and that's what's ruining my marriage. And I say, excuse me, let's talk about that again. How many hours in a week? Well, let's see, 168, by golly. And you say you're working 50 or 60 hours. Okay, take 60 off. 60 off of that leaves 108 hours. It's what you do with that 108 hours that will affect you in your family life. Now, for me, that's 100 hours. I want to adjust that properly for my faith, for my family, and my farming. That's my job. And so you have 40, 50, 60 hours. So there, you still got 100 left. And when you're with your family and your kids, make that the most important thing you're doing. Lay the doggone cell phone down if you're talking to your 10-year-old. Oh, excuse me. No.
Right.
It needs to be their time. I guess one of my favorite remarks is someone asked my son Scott, who's president, said, well, how'd you do growing up with a dad? You know, it was always busy all the time. Just seemed like he was busy all the time. How'd you like that? Or whatever. And he says, I knew Dad was busy. When it was my time, it was my time. He was devoted to that time. And he has done a better job than I did of that, raising his kids. But when you're with a person, whether it's your wife, your husband, whatever, it's their time. It's the most important time. And we need to lay some things down like a cell phone and make it their time, and then it just magnifies the value of your time. But again, faith, family, you must have that part of your life in line, or you will not find a job that you really like.
Well, we have much more ahead with Sonny Beck when we return on the Business and Beyond podcast. We'll talk about the roots of the company, dating back really to the 1800s. His family came to America. We'll talk about that and much more when the Business and Beyond podcast returns.
At PNC Bank, we're committed to making a difference in the lives of our customers and communities by helping them move forward financially. As a Main Street bank, we try to do right by our customers with every encounter. Our local teams offer personalized financial advice to help guide you in making the best decision. We're proud to be part of your community. PNC Bank. See how we can make a difference for you at pnc.com. Copyright 2022, the PNC Financial Services Group, Inc., all rights reserved.
And welcome back to the Business and Beyond podcast presented by PNC. My guest this week is the CEO at Beck's, Sonny Beck. And Sonny talked a lot about the company present day in the first part of the podcast. Let's talk about the history, because I think it's really an interesting story. I did a little research. So your family came to America in the 1830s. And there was a tradition of passing on land, right, to each child after they got married. Talk about that tradition, kind of the earliest stages of what would become Beck's.
Yeah, certainly. The family came over in 1834, 1836, settled just south of Tipton, Indiana, on a couple of sections of ground there. Actually, my grandson, Corey Beck, when he was in school at Purdue, he looked up and found the actual ship and the names that were on the ship that came over in those days. And it would have been my great-great-grandfather who came over. And on there were 3 teenage kids. And one of them was Francis Beck, who was a teenager. And that name then transferred to my grandfather, Lawrence Beck. And then my father was Francis Beck. And I'm Lawrence Beck, but my mom said that's too long a name for a baby, so she called me Sonny. So that's how I got the name Sonny, and so forth. Anyway, they settled on this 2 sections of ground, and then whenever children got married, they got 80 acres, because that's what a normal farm size was in those days. By the time my grandfather, Lawrence Beck, in 1901 got married, there was only 40 acres left. And so it was clear. So he sold that 40 acres. It became 6 miles south to where we are between Atlantic and Arcadia, about 6 miles, 8 miles south of Tipton itself, and found this 80 acres and bought this 80 acres in 1901 and had to finish clearing it off to make his whole 80. So that's how we got started on the very place that most of our buildings, there's about 30 acres of buildings now, warehouses and research and everything on that 80 acres. So you hardly recognize it anymore. But that started here in Hamilton County instead of being in Tipton County.
So there was, at some point, there was a transition, I guess, from traditional farming to growing hybrid seed corn, right? Sure. And how did that all happen? I know it's a testament to innovation, creativity as well, and detasseling. I know, and I remember I detasseled corn when I was a kid. That was a big part of it, right?
That's right. But a little bit of history why hybrid seed corn is such a big deal. From 1865, if you look back, that's the Abe Lincoln days. U.S. was keeping records on corn yields, and they were 30 bushels per acre. And my grandfather, in 1901, inherited 30 bushels per acre. And from then until 1937, when hybrid seed corn came out, guess what? It was 30 bushels per acre. Us selecting open pollinated from, just all the genes were mixed up, and you never could get one that would stand good and would have yield. And so the hybrid seed corn came along, and it's changed that 30 bushels per acre in the U.S. And we had, and from 1737 until 1964, we gained a bushel per acre per year because of the hybrid seed corn. Then we learned, since we had atrazine and some weed controls coming out in the mid-60s, that we could control weeds in this short corn that it took to grow hybrid seed corn. You had to use inbreds, and they were short, and the weeds would overcome them. When we had atrazine, now we could go back to using single crosses instead of double crosses. So from single crosses from 64 until mid-90s, we gained 2 bushels per acre per year. Then we come along with weed controls again, and also rootworm controls and gene and genotypes and basically all these inventions, the rootworm control and so forth, and that gave us 3 bushels per acre. And now recently, we believe we're on 4 bushel climb because of innovation, quantum analysis. Our quantum analysis just means instead of me crossing one hybrid with one inbred with another, and then trying out all 100 outcomes, we throw the information about this father and this mother, this male, this female, into the computer, and that gives us, go get a cup of coffee and you come back and you've got millions of potential outcomes. We pick the best ones out of that and go to the field. So that's the reason we're on a 3 to almost 4 bushel per acre per year increase in corn yields in the United States. That's because of this, the genetics is just getting better because we can make better use of our time using analysis. And those call it AI now. But we've been on that sort of thing for some years. Here, we call it quantum analysis because we could look at so many outcomes just by crossing this male with this female. So that's kind of the history of how we've led the world literally in corn yields and breeding. And it's not just all in the cornfield anymore, although it is. We have 19 locations, and we're doing testing to test how these hybrids work for this farmer in this area. And we don't want a hybrid that just goes all across the United States. So it might make us a little bit different. We want to select a regional hybrid that works here in Indiana, and we get over to the darker soil in Illinois. That's a different hybrid. And we get on north to where we have less heat units. That's a different hybrid. And then we go on the Delta, and that's a completely different system down there. So we want to select hybrids to all those regions as opposed to just saying, well, here's the best one for the U.S. Now go sell it. So farmers appreciate that a lot too, knowing where they can go to the fields and walk and see competitors' corn and soybeans against ours in their own area.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if you ask one of the sources of growth is that they can see they see how that hybrid performs, and then see lots of them that are adapted to their area, not just one that's adapted to the whole U.S. And so I've been very fortunate in being able to grow the company, farmers. That's really company it's not very fast, but it's so steady. It's not funny.
Yeah.
13%.
Yeah. Give people an idea, Sonny, because obviously technology and innovation has been a part of farming for a long time. But when you talk about the things you're doing there at Beck's, right here in Indiana, give people an idea of how much technology and innovation is involved in doing what you do.
Well, we spend a lot of time with that, but and there's a lot of time still in the field, but there's a lot more time, in the laboratories. And then, for instance, we're making a cross. We can now harvest that little grain of corn when it's just like a blister. Think of a sweet corn and just that little bitty blister there. We go in with literally a scalpel and you dig out most of that's food, but there's a germ right there, a little baby corn. We dig that out at about 11 days after pollination, and we put it on an auger plate, and in another 12 to 14 days, we will have a plant up here, maybe 6-8 inches tall, and we can snip a piece of that leaf. It's growing on an auger plate, and then go gene test it, know exactly what it will do. It just speeds up things so fast.
Yeah.
And it's just fun because it can just make things go so fast with all the innovation and things that we can do nowadays.
Yeah. Sonny, what's next? As you look, I know you're very strategic about growth. If you've talked about that consistent growth, as you look, going forward, is there a next big thing or a next push at Beck's? It's
probably a lot of little things, but again, we've always been able to put everything together and end up with 10 and 12% growth. And again, you don't want to set a goal and say, we're going to beat the county team here. You don't want to set a goal and say we're going to beat somebody. When you beat them, you quit. We all are about making ourselves better every day. And I think if you continue to do that and use all the sources that you have at hand, everybody in the team, from research to production to sales to agronomists to everything, understanding it takes everybody doing their best to make this work. And everybody understands that. It's not the plant breeder, it's not the salesman, it's the whole team. And if companies will adopt that method, I believe you can grow any industry or any company. If we trust each other, it's TIICP, integrity. One of the biggest things that get you fired here would be not being truthful. Not being truthful or maybe stealing something. There's no question about that. So I don't believe, I said this for you, like, I don't believe in putting the fence around it and locking things up. I just believe in locking people up that don't believe like I do. In terms of integrity, okay? Now, that's a strong statement, but again, you don't have to lock things up if you have people that have integrity. And we also are very willing to hire other family members. Some companies would say, nepotism, and you can't bring anybody. Hey, I have companies here, the father, the mother, and 2 children all work here. I mean, it's fun. I just soon they be talking about their work so that their work at Beck, so that separate table is something else, or not being able to talk about it at all. And so we have a lot of really good families in more than one generation. It maybe takes a little bit of a special person here, but you got to be willing to play on the team and recognize the goals of other people. Yeah. And we're all going to win. We're all going to win.
Well, there's been a lot of winning at Beck's for many, many years, Sonny. I really appreciate you taking the time to join me for the podcast. Congratulations on the continued success, and thank you too for your leadership here in Indiana at Purdue and for the state of Indiana as well, because that's been very important as well. So thanks very much.
Thank you, Gary, for your always great commentating, and you bring a lot to agriculture in the state of Indiana. Thank you.
All right, Sonny, thank you. And thank you for joining us on this edition of the Business and Beyond podcast presented by PNC. It is a weekly conversation with achievers in business, sports, entertainment, and beyond. And you can download all of our episodes and get Indiana business news 24/7. All you have to do is go to InsideIndianaBusiness.com. I'm Gary Dick. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.